Welcome. Today we will discuss the country of Kenya and the problems going on with their gender inequality that they face in their country. We will go in depth to discuss the lack of basic human rights towards women, and we will also discuss the laws that have been passed to try to combat this issue.
Background. Kenya unfortunately has significant inequalities between males and females. Traditionally, women have been considered the inferior gender in most regions in Kenya. They are the most vulnerable group in Kenya too. They are particularly vulnerable to poverty, especially at the household, and the community is filled with gender-based violence, harmful cultural attitudes, and beliefs around gender roles, norms, and female empowerment. They all have different roles in their respective tribe groups, but their main expectation is to cook, clean, and take care of the children. This is because from the past, women were disallowed commodities like basic education by their elders, parents, and tribe leaders, hence making them ineligible to work modern-day jobs or occupations that are on par with men's.
Sexism is a problem in Kenya. The women are viewed as the weak and unable to perform the tasks and jobs the men are able to perform. There is very little representation in the higher government for women compared to the men, meaning no voices from the women are being heard in regards to the problems that they are facing, such as human rights. Sons are desired more than daughters due to the sons having a chance to reach a higher education, versus the daughters who will not be given the same opportunity to strive for a higher education, but instead will be put to work from a very young age.
Their role in society. On the other hand, even though women are tasked to do less tasks than the average man, they still play very important roles in society. They are the main ones who cultivate and harvest crops for both selling and personal consumptions. Moreover, raising the babies is no easy task. While the man goes out and fends for the family, the mother must act as the protector and make the compound a safe, relatable place for raising the children, meaning they must multitask while cooking, cleaning, and breastfeeding, and etc. Most families in the rural areas, especially of the tribe named Kalenjin, have more than 3 children at the same time, hence requiring a deeper level of mental toughness and humility in their everyday lives.
Over time, the situation has turned more favorable towards women and their rights. Currently, women are being more represented over time. They have seen an increase in women representation in the higher forms of government. Also, since gaining independence from Britain in 1963, Kenya's economy has improved drastically. This has led to an increase in jobs and higher education for women. Also, a mix between social media, activists, and celebrities using their platform and influence has led to a larger reach towards women's rights and breaks the old tradition of men running the households and the country.
Cultural beliefs / gender roles. Women were expected to be obedient to their husbands. Their main responsibility is to raise and care for the children, and they're responsible for carrying water and firewood over long distances. Men were expected to support the family financially. They were considered head of the household, and they were breadwinners. Men often leave rural areas for more urban economies and seek a job opportunity. In urban areas, there is more gender equality. Some women share the decision-making skills and choose to opt out of the traditional patriarchal chores.
There are psychological effects from these social roles. Women and men's social roles were very defined. In Why Attitudes Towards Sexual Violence in Kenya Need a Major Refresh by author named Cynthia, she states that most young men are socialized to be sexually adventurous and aggressive as a way to prove their masculinity. Girls are expected to be chaste, domesticated, and compliant. This allowed for sexual aggression to become more frequent because it was frowned upon if the women weren't compliant. This also caused women to go through trauma of rape and sexual harassment. Symptoms of sexual harassment from the victim are PTSD, anxiety, and even depression.
Trauma creates physical injuries, but more importantly, psychological injuries. But the psychological injuries is not cured by any medicine. It's cured only through psychotherapy. Can leave behind 3 essential negative behaviors. One is what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder here is referring to the lingering of the experience long after it has occurred, right? It comes by the way of re-experiencing something like nightmares. The girl for a long time can wake up in the middle of the night because she's dreaming of the aggressor coming back, reliving the experience as if it just happened. And the wound gets only deepened with that kind of experience. So something has to be done to take it away.
The demand for a new constitution to replace the 1969 text with a more democratic system began in the early 1990s. In 2010, Kenya introduced a new progressive and rights-based constitution, which provides a legal framework for the government to fulfill basic human rights, and for marginalized and vulnerable groups, especially the women and the children, to claim their rights. This constitution included things such as the Marriage Act, which registers all marriages, which effectively grants women a legal basis for land ownership, the Matrimonial Property Act, which protects all women's rights to property acquired during marriage, the Land Registration Act, which prevents spouses from having the home leases or sold without their own knowledge, and also the Law of Succession Act, which gives both male and female children the same inheritance rights.
Psychological solutions. Solutions for changing the mindset and stop sexual aggression would be to change the environment and households and to educate children at an early age. To change the mindset, we must change the social norm of looking down upon victims and change the aggressor's view from admirable to being scorned. The social norms theory supports this. The social norms theory posits that our behavior is influenced by misperceptions of how our peers think and act. Accordingly, the theory states that correcting misperceptions of perceived norms will most likely result in a decrease in the problem behavior or an increase in the desired behavior. Religious beliefs. The population practices 3 different religions: Christianity, Islam, and indigenous worldviews. Christianity. Majority of the population are Christians, which is 82%. Christianity was introduced to Kenya when missionaries settled near Mombasa in 1844. History highlights the distinction in contemporary Kenya between the mainstream branches of Protestant and Catholic and the African independent churches. Christianity is an influential force in the country, helping to modify traditional practices relating to Kenyan values on family pertaining to gender roles. Islam. Islam first arrived to Kenya in the 8th century when Arab Muslim traders settled in the coastal ports along the east coast. They are the second most widely practiced religion in Kenya, and the majority identify as Sunni Muslims. Indigenous. Indigenous beliefs vary by ethnic group, and each has its own origin stories, sets of practices, and superstitions.
The Kenyan economy is very vulnerable to external shocks, and unemployment is a challenge, especially for women. According to the CDC, over 43% of the population lives in poverty. Women are unable to access the justice system due to limited legal costs. Health challenges in Kenya include high maternal and child mortality rates and a high burden of infectious diseases such as HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria. Women are also more likely to be infected by AIDS than men. Women's unpaid childcare and domestic work limits women's contributions and benefits from productive activities, constrain their mobility, and limit their access to market resources and information while participating in the economy. Violence such as sexual violence, rape, physical violence, and sexual harassment also continues to be a problem. Also, the zero legal representation for women is a problem as well.
Statistics. Kenya has a score of 81 out of 100 on the Women, Business, and the Law 2020 Index. In 2018, Kenya ranked 76th out of the 144 countries on the Global Gap Index, while currently, Kenya ranks 109 out of the 153 countries. This means that Kenya has slightly made good efforts in the right direction to reduce gender inequality. However, due to the expansion of countries in the study, their ranking has relatively stayed marginal. Kenya scores a 54.9 on the SDG 2019 Gender Index. The regional average is 51. Kenya has a score of 54. This is slightly above the regional average, meaning in recent years there has been efforts and strides made to reduce gender inequality specifically in Kenya.
To see one of the biggest examples of gender inequality, look no further than the education system. United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization stated that in Kenya, women's literacy rate has significantly increased as a result of positive government policies and strategies. However, despite progress in education as a whole, gender disparity remains a challenge, as 16% of women in Kenya still lack basic literacy skills, compared with 9% of men. Women are still severely underrepresented. Over the years, despite the changes, the laws and policies in the country, women still continue to be underrepresented in higher education. This underrepresentation of women has caused women to be curtailed in industries within the country that require a higher education.
Marriage in Kenya. The gender inequality in Kenya have evidently crept its way into marriage traditions within Kenya. Before 2013's Matrimonial Property Act, women were blatantly disrespected and disregarded within their marriage. If a divorce were to occur, the husband would automatically assume ownership of the properties obtained throughout the marriage. This would often lead women to stay in both sexually and physically abusive relationships in order to not be left with nothing in the case that their husband left them. Situations like this also made it far more likely for women to encounter sexually transmitted diseases such as AIDS.
Kenya's government has attempted to address the inequality issue facing the country. First, the government has allocated money to women in order to partake in entrepreneur activities and to get ahead in their financial independence. However, though, attempts such as this have no effect for those who truly need the money. The funds allocated to women who truly needed it saw little to none of these funds. Women who had access to these funds were women of already privileged backgrounds. This is why the inequality within the country is still present even today. The efforts to combat it are made ill by the corruption that is also rampant in the country today.
Outside support to combat women inequality in Kenya. Many celebrities and prominent figures from Kenya and other African countries have come out to help dismantle the inequality women face, not only in Kenya, but all over the world. Gigi Hadid has a charity that works with UNICEF to empower mothers and their children in difficult situations. Her charity works to strengthen households and communities. She also regularly makes visits to countries that still suffer with women inequality. Lupita Nyong'o is another prominent figure who is actually of Kenyan descent that actively combats women inequality. She has often publicly spoken out against not only just the women inequality in Kenya, but anywhere. Ms. Hadid and Ms. Nyong'o are only two of the many figures that actively pursue a change in women inequality not only just in specific countries, but worldwide.
Sadly, the inequality in Kenya has also caused other troubling things to occur in this country. The gender inequality has also caused widespread sexism within the country. Within some remote villages, women are often at times still not allowed to work and are seen as unequal to men to this day. Also, women are still experiencing high levels of sexual violence, rape, and physical violence with no consequences towards their perpetrators.